Hi, this is Joy Montgomery from Joy's Paper Bead Bar. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to show you how to roll a charm bead from DSP and also how to make spacer beads, because I found when I did just the charms with the DSP, the bracelet looked a bit crowded. And so looking at the sort of Pandora style bead, I noticed obviously that they have little silver beads in between. And I thought, well, can we make those? And actually, yes, we can. So for the first one, I'm going to use a knitting needle to roll the bead, and this is 5.5 millimeters, but you could use 5. I find this is actually a little too big. And what we need is 2 strips of paper. The first, which is your tubular strip, which is just cut straight up and down, and this is 8 millimeters at the top and 8 millimeters at the bottom. And then the second strip, which graduates into a triangle, starts at, I do 7 millimeters, so it's a little bit smaller than the first strip, and then goes down to as narrow as you can get it. So first of all, we're going to roll the first bead, the tube bit. Just get it on the end there, and then just roll it like that. And try and keep it a little bit neat, but you can fix it at the other end, so it doesn't matter that much. It's more for the size of the hole that we use the knitting needle, because the normal paper bead rollers are just too narrow. Right, so you can see you've got quite a nice size hole there, but I want to check and make sure that it's actually going to fit my core, and obviously I didn't prepare that earlier, so bear with me while I just get one out of the pack. Okay, so that's the silver plated cores that I use. I'm just going to check that that fits in the hole, lovely. And then I'm going to just tighten it a little bit to make it nice and snug. And then I'm going to stick this end in a little bit of glue, and I've decanted the glue just to make it easy. And then I'm just going to wrap that around, and I'm going to hold it down for a little bit, because DSP is really good paper, so it's quite strong, so it wants to automatically fight back. Well, not fight back, it's been a bit dramatic there, but it wants to spring up. And so I've got to hold it just like that and just let it stick down. That's fine. And you can see I've got a bit of glue on here, so I always keep a wet cloth next to me, and I use that just to wipe the glue away, the excess glue. That's fine. And then what I'm going to do now is add the second piece. And this piece, you want to get the widest part, because this is the triangular piece. Dip that in a bit of glue, and then just add that to the end of the first piece. You can actually take out the core at the moment, but I'm just going to leave it in there for a bit. Hold that together, and then actually you can see that that's not straight, so I've still got a little bit of time to straighten that before the glue really sets, because if it's too far out here, it's going to show up when you're rolling it. So you want to, and that's why I cut it a little bit smaller than the first one, so that it doesn't stick out. Okay, that's fine. Hold it between your thumb and your forefinger, and then just roll the second piece around the first piece. And because this is graduated, it will eventually start getting narrower and narrower, and that's what's going to form the shape of the bead. Just keep going, try and keep it as much in the middle as you can, and keep it as tight as you can. And then when you get to the end like that, again, just dip it in the end like that and wrap it around. And again, this is quite a thick end. I would have done it a bit thinner actually, but hold on to it, try and keep it centered, and hold it down. A little bit of waste on that, so I'm just going to put that back on the bead. And actually I should take that core out before it gets stuck. I think I will. See if I can poke it out like that. Yeah, there you go. A little wipe. And that is really your charm bead. Now I'm just going to straighten it up. Can you see how you can still move it from side to side? So I can manipulate that quite in, out now. I can see my fingers are getting sticky, so I'm actually going to wipe some of the glue off. Otherwise it's just going to transfer onto your bead and make it a bit grubby looking. Okay, that's fine. The next stage in this process is then to coat it with 2 coats, I find, and I need like an hour in between of a glue, and you can use Tombow glue, and I would use 2 teaspoons or tablespoons depending on how many beads you're going to actually coat, and then 1 teaspoon of water, so 2 to 1 basically, give that a good mix, and then I've used an old makeup brush to then just coat the bead, and this is going to seal it and stop it moving around. So the way I was able to manipulate it just then, I won't be able to do this once this sets. Oh, this is too thick, so I've not added any water to this. I can see this is too thick. Be careful there, because these beads are not waterproof obviously at the moment, so you don't want to get them wet, but you do want the glue a little bit thinner. See how that's going on a bit better? And usually I would give this about an hour to dry. And sometimes I tend to make a lot of beads and then glue them all at once because it's quite messy. And then I just use skewers I get from the pound shop. I use those to dry the beads, like that. And then I've got a little wire rack that I can just dry it on, but you could use anything that it'll stick out from. Leave that there. Right, once the bead has dried and you've done another coat and it's dried again, then you want to get the glossiness. And I found 2 ways of doing this. You can either emboss it, so stamp it, put on some embossing powder, use your heat gun. That's really good, but I don't seem to be very good at it. So the other way I do, which is quicker as well, is I tend to use the Crystal Effects, and I just paint it on, and I've done 3 coats which have made it really, really shiny. So for instance, this has had 2 coats already, so I've already sealed it, and then now we're at the glazing stage, 2 coats, and then I could just show you quickly, just like my brush, I literally just dip in the pot and wipe it on. Can you see? And that's making it nice and shiny. But if you're good at embossing, embossing is better. It does really give it a glassy finish, but it obviously takes a bit longer. And that really is a finished bead. 2-3 coats of that, make it nice and shiny, and then the next thing you're ready to do is add your cores to the bead. Cores come in all different sizes. I'm using ones to fit a 5mm hole, and that's these sizes here. It's on the side, and then basically, no, I haven't tested these ones actually. Will they fit? Yes, they will. So basically, what I would do is glue 2 ways. You can either glue the core or you can glue the bead. I think for this particular time, I think I'm just going to glue the bead itself, just because it's less messier. But you do want to get all around those edges and a little bit inside, but not enough to block the entrance, but enough so that when you put this in, because you want this to hold, let's squeeze it like that. Again, wipe off any excess. So you've got a bit of mess in there, I have to clean that up afterwards. And then the same on the other side. Add the core, squeeze, wipe that off, and then what I do again is I'll use one of the skewers to kind of just go in and clean. Oh, my cloth comes in use for so many things. Clean the inside, see? Much better. Because don't forget your chain has to go through there, so you don't really want it to run smoothly along. Then give it another wipe, and that's it. The bead's done. I would leave that to dry then, probably overnight, just to let everything settle, and then I would put it on the chain the next day. So that's the main bead, and these come in all different sizes. This one I've actually done 3 strips to make it a bit thicker. just to give a little bit of difference between the size of the beads. But I found the most interesting thing was to make these spacer beads, and what I use for those is our glimmer paper that we have, glitter paper, and I cut it. I did 5mm, so quite narrow, because you want them to be smaller than your other beads. You want them to sit inside. So this one I started off at 8mm, I think, and then I thought a bit chunky. Then I went down to 5, 4, I think these are. But you can kind of play around with the sizes, but you just want it to look smaller than the main bead. And for this you need a smaller needle, because you're going to use a smaller core. And I'm using this one for a 4mm needle. No, hole, sorry, and I'm using a 4.5mm needle. Oh, that's right. Again, we're only going to use one strip for this because we want it to be quite small. And we're going to wrap it again around the needle. Quite messy. I've ordered some Stampin' Up glimmer paper, which is going to be so much better than this. This is just something I got very quickly from the store that shall not be named. So this one is definitely not as good quality, I can tell. Look at that. But it'll do for these purposes. Right, so it's come out quite thick actually. Let's just check that core. Yeah, it's quite good, but I wonder if I should make it half the side. Let's have a look. Might be okay. You might decide that actually I'm going to cut the paper and make it a smaller bead. This really is your own preference thing, because actually I think maybe I don't need all of it. Maybe I will get rid of some of it. Yeah, that's quite good. I'm going to cut that. Again, it's down to you. Play around with sizes. No, I'm not left-handed. See what you think. Right, let's tighten that back up and glue that. It's messy in the middle. Not great. I'll do for now. And then the same thing you would do with this. You would glue this a couple of times. You would seal it with the PVC glue. This needs holding down a lot longer. And then you would add crystal effects. I wouldn't use embossing powder on this. I've never tried it, but I don't know if it would work with the glitter paper. But the crystal effects works really well. That's what I've used on these. And then just add your cores at the ends, the same as the other ones, and then that gives you your spacer beads. And I think that works out really nicely. I'm going to leave dimensions for this and all the materials that I've used on my blog, which is www.paperbeadbar.co.uk. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I'm going to wipe the glue off my fingers and see you next time. Okay, thank you very much. Bye bye.